What's up, my guys and geeks? We got the casting announcements for the Fantastic Four MCU film finally.
Finally.
So today I'm going to be reacting to the casting announcements and giving some of my thoughts about what we can expect from this film. Alright, if you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell for more awesome Geek Space content. And be sure to let me know in the comments down below what you think of these casting announcements, and if you are excited for the Fantastic Four MCU project. So, essentially, Marvel released their casting announcements in a bit of a weird way. They posted this image you see here on Twitter, I believe it was, for Valentine's Day.
It's odd.
Essentially announcing that this is their Fantastic Four cast. And you can see them all right there. They're all put in a nice little graphic as a family set in the 60s and all. But so, who did we actually get cast as the Fantastic Four? Well, we got Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic after rumors about that were circulating for a long time, it seemed. They confirmed that Pedro Pascal will be playing Reed Richards.
This is the way.
And I don't know, I think it has potential. I'm just so used to him from The Mandalorian as more of this macho gunslinger, like lone wolf kind of guy, that I'm interested to see how he'll be like the head of Marvel's first family, how he'll do in kind of more of a family-centered, less masculine and more academic sort of role. I haven't seen a lot of his acting, but I think there's potential there. I definitely like what he did in The Mandalorian, so I'm interested in that. We've also got Joseph Quinn as Human Torch. Now, Joseph Quinn obviously blew up in popularity playing Eddie Munson on Stranger Things.
This year, it's my year.
Which, in my opinion, he was one of the best parts of the fourth season. But I think I like a lot of the energy he brought to Eddie. I think that transfers over to Human Torch really easily. A lot of that excitable, a bit quirky, energetic energy. And also, I think with a bit of adjustment, he can pull off a lot more of the, like, charming ladies' man as opposed to, like, the weird outcast. I'm assuming a lot of that's, like, in the same vein. Just if he changes the way he carries himself just a little bit, I think he can pull off Human Torch really well. Then we got Vanessa Kirby as Invisible Woman. I have not seen anything of her acting, really. I looked up a few clips before recording this just to kind of get an idea of her acting and whatnot. I think she's definitely visually a good match. She looks like Sue Storm, and I think because what I saw her mainly from is Napoleon, playing kind of that more romantic interest. So I think if she can incorporate that into her performance as Invisible Woman, I think that's got potential. And then we've got, sorry, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. Let me see. We've got Ebon Moss-Backrack as the Thing.
Who?
I'm sorry if I messed up that pronunciation. I did my best, but I also hadn't seen much of his acting. I also looked up some clips of him. I think he's able to bring more of that strong, commanding presence. I think he'll be a good match. I keep thinking of, who is it, Michael Chiklis? Sorry if I mispronounced that too, from the 2000s Fantastic Four movies. He just embodied things so much, it's kind of hard for me to imagine anybody else as the character. But I'm interested to see what this interpretation will bring to the table. But aside from the casting announcement, this image also did give us some other hints in that it looks like it's very much a 60s centered piece of media. It's got that 60s aesthetic style. They're reading like 60s era magazines. Everything looks like the 60s.
Fantastic Four. Didn't you guys chart in the 60s?
And so that does seem to confirm the long-held theory that Fantastic Four will take place in the 1960s, which I think is interesting because obviously they've got a lot of explaining to do. If they're going to make the Fantastic Four have been an established group of characters within the main MCU timeline, then there's a lot of explaining to do as to how nobody remembers them. There's obviously memory wiping spells and things like we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home. There's obviously ways to make people forget, but I don't feel like that would be as thematically interesting to just use the same plot point from No Way Home and drop it in this different project as a way to explain it just because you want it to be set in the 60s. There's also, of course, the possibility of like multiverse travel or something, but I think in order for the Fantastic Four to really be integrated into the main MCU, you've got to make sure that they're existing within the main MCU universe so that they're able to have kind of a relationship, not necessarily with the characters, but at least with the world. They have to have experienced the same history, the same kind of things that MCU characters are familiar with in order for it to feel like they really belong in the main MCU universe. So I think, so while I am a fan of the idea of a period piece 60s different take on the Fantastic Four, I think that could be just enough of a switch to the formula to hopefully allow them to get it right this time after a couple of less successful attempts with the Fantastic Four in the past. While I am a fan of that general idea, I think they've got to be very careful about how they explain why the Fantastic Four are not heroes that we know of in the MCU. But if they're able to properly integrate that, I think that could be really interesting. Of course, there's also a lot of rumors about who the villain of this film will be. Primarily, people are thinking Doctor Doom simply because the MCU is kind of pivoting to Secret Wars and seems to be looking at Doctor Doom as a villain replacement for Kang after the Jonathan Majors controversy.
Call me Doom.
But there's also been a lot of rumors about Galactus possibly being the villain. Honestly, I don't think they should go with either character as the villain for the Fantastic Four film. I think Doctor Doom, while he hasn't been done right, he has been attempted a lot. He's been used in basically every Fantastic Four adaptation we've gotten, and while none of them have been the definitive version, they've all definitely made it clear that Doctor Doom is like the one Fantastic Four villain. I feel like we've seen that before, and unless they nail it absolutely perfectly, like flawlessly, I'm not really interested in just seeing yet another version of the Fantastic Four battling Doctor Doom. But then Galactus, I feel like, is far too large of a villain to simply use in this first Fantastic Four project, especially when there's no plan for any quick turnaround of a sequel like there was with Iron Man and Iron Man 2. If there was a time frame more like that, maybe I could see it, because then you'd basically have two movies to flesh out Galactus as a villain and really build up to such a gigantic threat and properly portray him. But I feel like it would really lessen the impact of these characters in the MCU. Make us feel like giant characters like Galactus and the Celestials aren't that much of a cosmic threat if Galactus just pops up in the Fantastic Four movie, is defeated at the end of the film, and kind of goes away for good. Like we had with Dormammu, I feel like the entire Dark Dimension and that side of the MCU holds so much less threat because Dormammu was just defeated and then forgotten about for basically 10 years. Yeah, there was a hint that he might be coming back at the end of Doctor Strange 2, but really we haven't revisited him since then.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
So I think that the Fantastic Four should explore a different villain for this film. I don't know if that's going to be Annihilus or Blastar or one of the other Negative Zone villains, or if they'll have a more terrestrial, street level based foe, but I would like to see a villain that's a bit more out of the ordinary, one that hasn't already been attempted in a Fantastic Four adaptation, just to give this some fresh flavor and make it feel different, because this will be the third adaptation of the Fantastic Four we've gotten since 2000. So I really feel like it needs to differentiate itself from the past interpretations. But alright, those are my thoughts on the Fantastic Four movie and the casting announcements. Be sure to give me yours in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell for more awesome Geek Space content. If you want to see me talk more about the MCU and rank every MCU film, you can click on this side of the screen. And if you want to see me rank all the 100 plus MCU heroes we have, you can click on this side of the screen. But until then, you've only got 3 seconds because the video is about to end. Adios!